The moment I knew I wanted to play bass was probably, I was like 6 or 7 years old. It was at the Greek Theater. One of my dad's favorite bands was the Gypsy Kings. So we went and saw them live with the family at the Greek Theater. And I remember bass solo, and it was like my whole world was upside down. I was like, yep.
Welcome to episode 89 of the Bass Shed podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. What's up, folks? This Saturday, September 3rd, is Lemur Music's Bass Benefits by the Beach. This is a gathering of artists from the community and musicians to raise funds for charities and outreach programs supporting those with special needs. Proceeds from Bass Benefits by the Beach also go to support music education. Lemur Music is a sponsor of the Silver Lake Music Conservatory, so stop by www.lemurmusic.com for more information and everything you need for the double bass. For all the listeners that have an album or an individual tune you'd like to sell, go to Fine.com and upload your creative content. Fine.com is a music distribution platform created by musicians for musicians. The folks at Fine.com have incorporated NFT and blockchain technologies on their platform. You can listen to my talk with the owners of Fine on episode 76 of the Bass Shed podcast to learn more about these technologies. It is free to sign up and upload your content. Stop by Fine.com. To all my friends that are teaching private lessons, BlinkLesson.app is the one-stop shop for managing a teaching studio. Head over to thebassshed.com, click on the logo for Blink Lesson, and begin the extended 30-day free trial period. Yes, it is an extended trial period for friends of the Bass Shed. This software is incredibly thorough. I personally use it. I love it. Check it out, BlinkLesson.app. On the episode is Grammy award-winning double bassist and electric bassist Abo Gumroyan. I met Abo on the scene here in Los Angeles a few years back. He was playing with a great band that night and sounded fantastic. Abo and I were chatting a few weeks ago, maybe month and a half. I don't know. I'm kind of losing all track of how time passes these days. But we were discussing the work he does for the industry recording sessions here in Los Angeles. Abo plays in the bass section for the orchestra on television and movie soundtracks, and that is a killing gig. So I was honored when he accepted the invitation to come on the podcast and talk about his journey as a bassist and speak about what it's like being on some of those recording sessions. Abo is also a crushing Latin player, and we got the chance to speak about that genre and that style of playing. And of course, there's going to be some gear talk. It's always a great time talking with Abo. I love his no BS approach to all of it. And here it is. Here's my talk with Grammy award-winning double bassist and electric bassist Abo Gumroyan. Man, you there?
Hey, bro.
How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Cool. Man, I was just checking out the little, let me pull it over here, the thing you did for Jason Heath's bass blog.
Oh, nice.
I might be hitting you up to borrow some of these microphones you're talking about. What mics are you using for the home studio?
I have like let's see here. I use like a legit like U87. Like
oh, wow. Yeah.
7, and then a DPA pencil mic for the room, or I use the Warm Audio U87 clone, which it's really kind of hard to tell the difference between the two. It's so good.
Man, I checked that mic out a lot, actually. I was thinking about picking one up. I checked it out a lot. It's pretty spot on. And like, you know, at a quarter of the price or something from a U87.
32nd of the price, man. It's like $700.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
I mean, my ear is good, but I can't really, you're splitting hairs there.
Yeah. Yeah. What's been keeping you busy, man? You still doing anything and everything?
Studio stuff.
Yeah.
And I've been up north quite a bit playing with San Francisco Symphony at the end of their season. We're starting up here again.
Oh, okay.
next month. Some, stuff in town, stuff at home, my 2-year-old.
Yeah. That'll take a lot out of you. You won a Grammy. What record or artist were you with that won a Grammy?
That was for the Pacific Mambo Orchestra, which is like a Latin salsa big band.
Okay.
In San Francisco in 2012. I got like a charter member of that group.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we won a Grammy for Best Tropical Album at 2000. We recorded the album in 2012. It won in 2013, I think.
Okay.
It's been a while. I mean, it's been a decade.
Yeah. It goes by so quick, right? Like I was literally just watching the documentary on Woodstock '99, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that it was that long ago. Like I remember Woodstock '99. I didn't go to it obviously, but I remember when that happened. And like now I'm watching the documentary on it. Like 22 years later, 23 years later.
Yeah, crazy. It's I don't know where it flew by, man. Yeah, San Francisco was a special place, man. I lived up there from 2008 to 2016. I was up there for 8 years.
Okay.
So it was a very nice scene up there. For sure.
What how did the scene differ from Los Angeles?
In which aspect?
I mean, obviously there's more industry down here, and I know that you're a part of that, and I do want to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
There's that, but like, what was like? Did you notice a stylistic difference in how dudes would play up there versus down here, or how that they would approach different scenarios, professionally?
I'm not one to be really shy. San Francisco.
Shoot.
San Francisco is very East Coast in the way things are run up there.
Okay.
First and foremost is can you play?
Yeah.
They don't really think about who you know.
Right.
You start working the room. That's a black. You get the black hand.
Yeah.
There, I should say. Here, it's obviously playing comes into it, but it's who you know here.
It's a little bit more name droppy when you're on the scene. Everybody's quick to
more political.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every place has its politics. It's just different.
Yeah.
There's different ground rules. Every ball stadium has different ground rules.
Right.
So, I had to adjust to that too, because I was playing with the ground rules of San Francisco, or used to the ground rules of San Francisco when I first moved here. So you have to pivot a little bit.
Right.
As far as work goes, there is very little bit of industry up there. Mm-hmm. As far as recording work, there's really only one like studio sound stage. That's up at Skywalker Ranch.
Okay.
It was a lot of like video game stuff, not too much motion picture happening up there.
Yeah.
The classical freelance scene over there is, in my opinion, it'll keep you much busier up there. In terms of volume, man, like we had a saying there, you play the freeway fill, because somebody might have 7 or 8 contracts because every city has an orchestra up there. San Jose, Berkeley, Oakland, Stockton, Modesto, Marin, and then anything in between. So if you won 3 or 4 contracts, you were staying busy, but it was that time it was much more affordable to live up there. Yeah. Get it now, man. It's it's insane. I left at the tail end of what I consider the good years of being able to like freelance and like maybe live in the city or live in the East Bay, but it's long gone now.
Yeah.
The classical work was very, very abundant up there. As opposed to here, the majority of the classical work is, mostly playing in the studios, which is a little bit hard to break into.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the San Francisco Opera and San Francisco Symphony, which I was fortunate enough to, get in there and, won the sub auditions and participated in some regular auditions and did well. And,
nice.
I still go up there quite a bit. As far as, the other side of my playing, like non-classical, the Latin scene up there was, I don't know how it is now. When I was there, it was pretty insane, man.
Okay.
Up until I won my orchestra jobs, just doing Latin gigs alone, there was 1 month, I think I cleared like 30 or 40, Latin gigs, man. And I was still farming out work because I couldn't make the hits.
And same kind of deal, like going around to all these little cities, like all the Oakland, San Francisco, Modesto, or was this all in San Francisco? Oh,
it was just there were just that many venues in San Francisco.
Yeah.
The majority of them are all in the dust now, torn down, condos.
Sure.
When I got there, maybe there was about 12 or 13 clubs that had bands nightly.
Wow.
Yeah, 7 days a fucking week, dude.
Nuts.
And now it's maybe 3 at best.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Everything's kind of going through a transition right now. This is like pre-COVID too. Like I think everything in the last 2 decades or so is going through a cycle. So sure. I think it might be an upswing, in the next decade.
Let's hope so. Yeah. It's going to be super expensive at that point, man. Can you imagine what it's going to cost to live up there?
Yeah. Here, yes, there is much more industry, the commercial, like the heavy commercial side of things,
mm-hmm.
The tours, the studio work, live work, TV work, definitely there's much more abundance of that here in LA. Yeah.
Where did you study classical? I don't know if we've talked about that.
When?
Where? Well, where and when, but I was...
I studied at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music.
Okay.
Briefly at USC.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And then where'd you get the Latin thing from? Like, were you studying with the Latin bass player? Were you just like checking out records and like copying what they're doing on the record?
So I've developed kind of a niche for myself is, being the Latin guy who's not Latin at all.
Yeah.
Solely by the way of my dad, actually.
Okay.
My dad was a jazz guitarist in former Soviet Republic of Armenia. So, in the 60s and 70s during the Cold War, you couldn't get records from the US. It was very difficult. So majority of my dad's record collection was Latin music because he could only get records from Cuba.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So, lo and behold, my dad always liked playing music in the household. My dad had a pretty killer, vinyl collection of not only Latin music, but jazz music. I'm pretty sure my first exposure to jazz music was via my dad's record collection. But
okay,
so my dad's record collection, listening to that shit when I was a kid, and then Armenian folk music is also at the root 6/8 based, much like Latin music. So there's a lot of cross stuff, and then I just took I've never studied Latin music. A lot of people come and ask me bro, how do you play all this stuff? And I mean, sorry to sound crass here. How do you not sound non-Latino?
Right.
How do you get that swing? And I always tell them, I'm like, bro, there's there's no book. You can lessons here and there, but it's playing salsa is a lifestyle, man. You gotta. It's like jazz music. I've dedicated myself to 2 bags of music: playing with the bow and playing Latin music. I won't call myself a jazz player. Yeah, I can blow changes and stuff like that, but I have not shedded it like I have Latin music. It's a lifestyle, bro. You learn from records.
That's actually similarly why I've never gotten into Latin music that deep, because it's I respect the history and the culture of it all. And it's not something you could just like, kind of half-ass a tune bow and be like, yeah, I can play Latin. Like, no, I cannot at all. I don't ever pretend to be. And I know that, we have mutual friends that are drummers that are really deep with that stuff. That can easily turn me around at the drop of a hat. And I will never, that's not something I do. I haven't put the time into it, and I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Well, I'll be the first to call out somebody too, because it's, like, oh, I can play Latin, and they're like, doom, 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 doom. I'm like, nah.
Right.
It's like I said, it's a lifestyle. It's, you got to live it. You have to live the music, much like jazz music, bro. Being a jazz musician is not merely, can you play all the things you are? It's, it's a lifestyle, man.
Yeah.
I've always I've never wanted to be like a jack of all trades.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. I was like, all right, well, I like these two things. I'm just going to shed at this. And, it's done me well. I still like playing jazz. Like, I still like playing fusion and shit like that, but I'm not really known in those circles, which is cool. I mean, everybody has their lane.
Right.
And that's something I've come to realize, I guess growing up and getting a little older, that, it's okay to be in one lane, because I always, even when I was younger, dude, I was trying to do everything. Everybody does.
Yeah.
But then like comes to a point that like, no matter how hard you try, you just like, sometimes you can't get it out of your lane.
Right.
No matter like the more you push, the more resistance comes back to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There came a point where I was like, fuck it.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, well,
I think some of that, man, I think like the lane is inside us, not to be too metaphysical here, but it's like whatever the thing is inside you so deep, you really can't get away from it. You can't deviate. You really don't have the passion to put it into another genre the same way you do whatever that thing inside of you is. Yeah.
I was having this conversation with a colleague of mine here in Los Angeles who's, he shall remain nameless, but he's a motherfucker, bro. He is probably one of, I can unequivocally say he might be the next Patitucci.
Okay.
I mean, amazing doubler.
Yeah.
I mean, rips on the sixth string. My jaw drops to the floor when he plays.
Okay.
Like literally, we were having this, conversation about it's like, man, like, my arco chops aren't what I want them to be. Like, I want to be doing like orchestra stuff and like this and that. And I'm like, oh my God, it's me 15 years ago. So I was like, bro. And I told him, I'm like, bro, like it took me a while to realize like I'm good at very few things. And I've come to that, like I told him like, you just can't like pick up the bow and expect to be ripping like Strauss, tone Paul, stuff like that. Like, it takes a lot of time just as the same way, like I can't do, 1/32 of the shit that you do on electric bass with all, your super like gnarly harmonic language, it's the same thing, like you've put in your time into that and that's your run with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, that goes back to like, what was that? A couple months ago when we were texting about some of that orchestral stuff. And I was curious about it, but I'm just like, that's not my.
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably get it together, but no. This is how I think about it. If I wanted to get it together, I would have already gotten it together.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So technically I could, I have the work ethic to achieve that, but I have other interests that are deeper passions than just, checking something off a list.
That's fine, dude. Yeah. No, I mean, the bow and the double bass is a very finicky beast, man. Like you don't shed for a day or two. Day 3 comes around and you're hating life.
I know. It's all out the window. Yeah.
And I have a lot of time into that, man. And it's no different for me. No different for anybody.
Right.
It's just that instrument and that that art form demands that
very
kind of
unforgiving. Very unforgiving.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Let's talk about that. You have probably one of the most coveted gigs in Los Angeles. You get to do the orchestral dates for TV and film.
Yep.
You told me kind of, a month ago, you got in that just from some other guys that are in the sections. They gave you an opportunity. Is this correct?
Yeah. They opened the door.
Yeah.
I owe my career in Los Angeles to Mike Valerio.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Valerio, I worship the ground that man walks on. Even I've known Mike since, let me see here, maybe like 2010, maybe like since I was like 25.
Yeah.
25, 27, and even just hanging with Mike from a young age until now, if you got to listen, man, like he dropped so many pearls of wisdom that I still use to this day.
Yeah.
He like I said, he kind of gave me a little push.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was because, coincidentally from my experience in the Latin scene, there was a particular film that I worked on, which was like my first like major, I guess, film score.
Okay. Which one was that?
That was Encanto.
Okay.
Disney.
Yeah. Was that the dude that did Hamilton? Is that the one he wrote?
He wrote a few of the songs on there. Yes.
Yeah,
okay. They were looking, for players who had experience in the Latin scene. Yeah. And, Mike saw me fit.
Okay.
And, recommended me.
Great.
But, Mike is one of my biggest influences, just not on bass, but just musically in general. He is probably the most consummate musician I've ever met in my life. On double bass, on electric bass, writing, arranging, conducting. The man just oozes music. I can't sing his praises enough.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was it like? So you got the opportunity to work on Encanto. You come in there. Now, when you're working on it, because they were looking for Latin players, was it you in a rhythm section just playing bass, or was it part of a section doing orchestral?
The section stuff, because you had to have some kind of understanding of some Latin rhythms.
Yeah.
And stuff of that nature, because the film is set in Colombia, so there's a lot of traditional Colombian rhythms, some Afro-Cuban stuff in there, even within the section part. Mm-hmm. That went well, and I got some calls for some other things, and by no means am I knocking it dead with the studio stuff. I'm still very new to it. I'm very junior man on that totem pole.
Are you kind of the newest member in the bass section there? When you guys get to a film date, are you the youngest, not age wise, but the newest to the section?
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with some of my other colleagues in live settings. Yeah. But in that realm, yeah. Okay. I mean, it's probably going to be like a little over a year that I've been doing that kind of work.
Okay.
Some of the other stuff that I've worked on is the Orville.
Okay.
Seth MacFarlane, it's like the Star Trek spoof.
Yeah.
Music for that. I recorded on the soundtrack for Jordan Peele's new movie, Nope.
Oh, nice.
That just dropped.
The movie just came out?
Yeah, a month ago.
Okay.
And then, always, some other things. I don't take it lightly. I'm very fortunate,
cool.
to get to be in those situations. It's it's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of pressure too. Like you got to deliver.
Seems like it would be. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of film music. A very famous studio flutist, Jim Walker. I remember reading an article once, and talking about, being an LA studio musician. He said 90% of the time it's pretty chill. And then, but that remaining 10% is sheer terror. That's where that's where you make your cheap.
How does the recording work differ from just playing in a section with the symphony at a concert? Because you got to nail both of them. There's no room for error. You probably have more time with the music before a concert than you do at the session. So there's that. You got to just show up and hang on.
On many occasions, they will send the score of what you're going to record a few days ahead of the first. So playing in a section and playing under the microphone are two different animals.
Mm-hmm.
I find playing in the studio section, it's an acquired skill set. I will say that how you play in a hall with a symphony orchestra is not how you play in the studio.
Interesting.
Again, to quote Mike Valerio, there cannot be any artifacts in the sound.
Mm-hmm.
Very smooth, minimal vibrato. Blend is a huge thing. If you see a forte on the page, you're not pumping a forte. You're maybe pumping a mezzo forte. So, studio playing, I think, is a lot more nuanced because, you might just have 8 of you, sitting on an A flat for 12 measures, which is a notoriously gnarly note to get in tune.
Right.
So, the pressure's on, or you might have a really, kind of like some kind of moving line, but it's just you and Chelly. So it has to be very smooth. Your gear choice, your bow choice, your rosin choice, down to your string choice. It's definitely geared.
Did you change? Did you when doing more recording dates? Did you change your strings to a different string and to a different rosin? Like, are you playing a different bow?
To a certain extent, but I look for those things now a lot more.
Interesting.
How does this bass sound under the microphone? How does this bow sound under the mic?
Mm-hmm.
Certain strings might be a little bit too raucous for the microphone as opposed to another set of strings. So it's like I said, playing in the hall when I am ripping and moving a lot of air is not how I play under the microphone or have been taught how to play under the microphone like that. It's definitely two different worlds.
So you just need to in my mind, as you're saying all this, just kind of rein it all in a little bit. It's like if you're playing in the concert hall, maybe you want a sound that projects and something that really pushes towards the back of the room. And when you're playing with the mic, nope, bring it in and they'll do it in post.
I mean, to put it roughly, there's the click aspect of it too.
Mm-hmm.
You're on click. Getting familiar with things, passages and stuff that doesn't really lie in the left hand well,
right? Because
maybe it's not written by a bass player.
Yeah.
If you have a composer who's a pianist, he might write a lot of chordal stuff that sounds good like this, but going across the fingerboard.
right. Yeah.
It's like I said, you have to rein it in, but deliver.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you play Latin, you play orchestral. You're also an electric bass player. When I met you, you were playing electric.
Yep.
So did you start on upright and then pick up the electric later? Did you pick up electric first, but then kind of dive more into the double bass world after you started? Which instrument came first?
Electric bass, but double bass is not that far along because I started playing double bass in 6th grade.
Oh wow!
I wasn't necessarily tall, but I was pretty stocky, and I have kind of abnormally large hands.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I actually started off as a violinist.
Oh.
You know, my aunt is a pretty well-known Suzuki violin pedagogue in Las Vegas, where I grew up.
Okay.
So I was actually a hotshot violinist.
Really?
And up until like maybe like 17 years old.
Okay.
So moving on to the double bass, as far as the bow goes, was a no-brainer for me because I already had, you know, the right hand from upper string playing. But yeah, no, electric bass came around in like 5th grade, and then 6th grade, I that's when I dived into the upright.
Okay. And what was it that was captivating about the electric bass? Was it a band you heard, or was it?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I can relate it back to my dad's record collection again. You know, my dad was really into Al Di Meola.
Okay.
You know, Chick.
Yeah, Return to Forever.
You know, the moment I knew I wanted to play bass was probably I was like 6 or 7 years old. It was at the Greek Theater. One of my dad's favorite bands was the Gypsy Kings.
Oh yeah.
So we went and saw them live with the family at the Greek Theater, and I remember bass solo, and it was like my whole world was upside. I was like,
that was it, huh?
Dude.
Yeah.
But also, like, you know, listening to the Al Di Meola records, like Land of the Midnight Sun, particularly. There's a track, you know, Sweet Golden Dawn, that was always had this ripping bass part. Later to find out it was Jocko. So obviously, you know,
right.
That was kind of my, oh fuck, what is this moment?
Then did you go down the Jocko rabbit hole like we all did at some point?
Yes and no. I went down more of a Marcus Miller rabbit hole.
Okay.
I mean, I did have a Jocko thing at one point, but I really, really, really went down the Marcus Miller rabbit hole more so. Yeah, I mean, I would say him and Anthony Jackson again for because of, you know, the Al Di Meola cuts.
Right.
So.
Right. Interesting. What's your favorite Marcus record? I think I only own 1 or 2. The Sun Don't Lie, and I forgot what the other one is. I used to listen to it a ton, but I respect Marcus. I love Marcus. I love what he did for the bass world, you know, but I'm not a huge slap guy. So it's just, you know.
I think it was, I mean, the slap stuff was at the very least of it for me, believe it or not. It was more of his, like, the production stuff.
Yeah.
And his like bass playing.
Yeah.
Like, Marcus fucking plays bass, man.
Yeah. You know, 100% agreed. Yeah.
I've always been into that. Like, you know, notey stuff, I'm not into.
Sure.
Ever.
But I mean, coming up and like having this strong Latin American, South American, whatever, you know, Latin music, that bass is just like as out of the way, you know, as you can get.
I mean, you know, I
You're just laying it down the whole time.
I have a joke that I always say, you know, with my, you know, like friends who can play faster and you know, and quicker. I'm like, yeah, you can play, you know, 32 notes. I'll kill you with 2.
Yeah,
and I will. So, I mean, back to the Marcus thing, for me, it was like, I mean, all of them are great. You know, M Squared and the Ozell tapes were kind of my, those kind of hit me pretty hard. Those, I mean, and like, even, but like, you know, sound wise, like, I'm not really like, I don't like, Marcus is not like my go-to for, you know, it's not like my sound per se.
Yeah. Who are the guys that helped shape your concept of sound for electric bass?
So Mike Elizondo, was a big influence on me. You know, because like the soundtrack to like my high school years, my teenage years was Chronic 2001, Dr. Dre, Marshall Mathers LP.
Yeah.
So that, you know, that when I graduated high school 2002, Voodoo just dropped. So Pino.
Yeah,
I mean, I was hip to Pino long before Voodoo.
Okay.
But you know, Voodoo was one of those albums that's like, once in the 50-year album. Like, what the fuck is this?
Right. And all the playing Pino was doing on all that neo soul stuff. Like the late 90s, early 2000s, all that like jazz infused hip hop, Tribe Called Quest style stuff. Yeah, I mean, Pino was on all of it. He shaped that sound like Jamerson did soul. He was. Yeah,
Jamerson is another thing, again, from my dad's record collection. He had a lot of Motown stuff. So like Pino, Jamerson, Abel Boreal, Senior. Again, from my dad's records cuts, Al Jarreau.
Okay.
So it's funny, I've definitely, have that, I guess like that old school, like LA studio sound in my head as far as like rhythm section stuff, from my dad's record collection.
So your mom played violin. Your dad's got the collection. Did your dad play also? Did he play?
Yeah, my dad was a
guitar player. Yeah, that's right. You told me that. Okay.
My mom was not the violinist. It was my aunt.
Aunt was the violinist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would say like Jamerson, Pino. I kind of take things from everybody. It's kind of hard not to. But I would say like like Jamerson, Marcus for the slap stuff for sure. I never got into Wooten much. I love his stuff, but it's just never really spoke to me. Yeah. I went to his bass camp. I guess.
The Woot camp?
The Woot camp. Yeah. That was really great. Like his whole concept on life and music in general is pretty deep.
Mm-hmm.
What
are some nuggets that what were some takeaways you got from the camp that you still kind of that you see still being in effect in your career now?
I can't really remember. I just feel like the biggest person who had the biggest impact for me from that camp was, Victor aside, was Kai Eckhart. Played with John McLaughlin.
Yeah.
As far as his rhythmic concept, man, some of the South Indian tabla patterns that he does on slap. I think his command of odd meters was really cool. Because me coming from my ethnic background of Armenian music, odd meters we eat for breakfast, right. So it was kind of, and we kind of bonded on that too. Discussing, most, his concept and some of my stuff that I've heard, growing up with, Armenian music, Middle Eastern music, that kind of stuff. So
yeah. That's cool.
Another, a big influence as far as, playing and the business, especially, gear, is Vic Momjan. I call my uncle Vic Momjan. He's another bass player here in Los Angeles.
Okay, I don't know him.
Absolute motherfucker.
Nice.
He's 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 the Jamerson for Armenians, man. He's just a real innovator, 6-year bass player. Yeah.
Okay.
You should get him on the podcast.
Yeah, I'd love to.
He's the first call guy for a lot of ethno-European artists, Middle Eastern artists, but he's really fused the way of bringing, Western style bass playing to, ethnic Eastern.
Right. But then also bringing a lot of that influence, that cultural influence to the States. And so he's of this conduit of. Right.
He is, he has an ear like no other, man. He's really shaped the way that I look at gear, what kind of gear I purchase. Conceptually, he studied with Steve Bailey, John Pena.
Okay.
He's the baddest, man. He's like my second dad. So he's definitely influenced me as far as approach.
Nice.
To the business, a lot of the business side of the things.
Okay.
And obviously, technique, equipment, stuff like that. But business wise, for sure. He's definitely he's definitely influenced me in that way.
Sweet. What gear are you playing right now? What's your main electric bass?
I mean, it's, some sort of Fender.
Okay. Like as it like just kind of pulled from different years and different makes, or you've just kind of bastardized it yourself over the years?
I mean, like my main bass is actually like my first bass that I ever got.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing stock left on it is the body. It was my first good electric bass that my dad bought me in 97, 98.
Okay.
The Mexican standard jazz bass.
Yeah.
I have modded it to hell and back over the years. Fender Custom Shop made me a new neck for it a couple years back. It has like the old school EMG pickups, which are kind of hard to come by nowadays. That's why I've poached the market, and I have like 10 sets of them new in the box.
You can't buy them anywhere because you own them all. So like no one else can find them. Yeah, because you own them all.
Yeah, no. So it's like it's that Fender P bass. I have like a kind of like a custom 5-string that my dad got me as a graduation present. Nice. A few other Sadowski. Yeah, man. It's electric bass is weird, man. Like you can whatever you play, you're always gonna sound like you know. There's some I've been ever since I moved to Los Angeles. Like I've been kind of more into the lo-fi shit. Okay. I have a joke with Zephyr Avalon. It's I call them the hotel cafe basses because they're all these weird ass short scales that that you'll see all these dudes playing at a hotel. Yeah.
This is like a modded pickup situation that they may have routed themselves or something.
Well, not even that, but it's like it's like some kind of like weird like short scale from the 60s that sounds like a bathtub, but like it actually sounds. I mean, like 10 years ago, you wouldn't have caught me dead playing something like that. Right. At all. Like the lo-fi for me back then, like 10 years ago, was a P bass for flat wounds, but like hollow body, short scale, no.
Yeah, I know. I like the sound of them when dudes play it and that's their thing. Like I have some friends like that's kind of their thing is that sound, and when they play it, it's cool. It's not for me.
Some of those lo-fi basses, they record the best. Yeah. Like a Fender Mustang. Right. The stuff that Jake Sarek is building. Mm-hmm. Stuff like
I haven't played one. Are you an endorser?
I'm not I'm not an endorser, but Jake's a buddy. Okay. But I would endorse his shit, man. I just haven't had a chance to pick one up, but I did a video for him a few years back when he was first kind of coming out on the scene. Like I just demoed one of his basses. They're very well built. Jake used to work at Lakeland in Chicago. And now he's branched off on his own and he's making like really, really, really hip shit, man.
I've checked him out. Like I've seen him a lot. I've never played one. I do want to play one. They look really cool.
As the other lo-fi, I guess the other lo-fi bass I have is, it's like 70s Guild Starfire. Okay. That's a sound. Yeah. I mean, I definitely tend to run more to the modern sound of the side of the sound spectrum because just the way it sits in the track, man, it's just, it's kind of hard to beat.
And I mean, it definitely like, the Marcus connection makes sense with that. He had the.
It's not even the Marcus connection. It's more so like my. It's more so like the Anthony and like the Abe Laboriel connection. Okay. Very very like straight. Down the middle. That kind of sound. Yeah. That I like. To sit in the track. So
what preamps are you running for the home studio?
Like interface.
Interface. Or do you have any outboard gear, or do you just do a lot of plugins?
So I have like the old school Aguilar DB 659 tube pre. If I need a tube sound,
the rack one.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I loved that. I hate it. It was such a bummer when that went off the market. Like I loved that preamp. I loved that preamp.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, they really used to make some audiophile grade shit, man.
Yeah.
But the market has dictated otherwise now.
Yeah, I mean, no one's gonna buy it, but now every bass head or preamp is the size of.
Yeah, and it sounds that way too, man. Like I have like you won't catch me dead playing a Neo cabinet. I will not fucking play. So I have the DB659. I have like the BAE. Brent Averill, like the 1073, like an Eve for like solid state.
Yeah.
And then I have kind of like a homemade direct box that my friend helped me put together with. Basically, it's a copy of the Bruce Sweetian bass DI. Like he was Michael Jackson's engineer, so it's an old school like UTC transformer. Okay. Just wired up as a direct box, and it's fat as fuck, man.
Dude, that's sick.
Yeah. So yeah, depending on the project, I either use the 1073 or the Aguilar, or even like the preamp on the Apollo sounds really good. Okay. Yeah. So and I use that in conjunction. Usually, one of my closets back here it's an amp closet. So nice. I have it soundproofed in there. So usually it's like B15 or another amp. And as far as live stuff, I only really use GK. Yeah. And Walter Woods and Bergantino cabs, but that's usually my go-to because they don't have Walter Woods and Bergantino like for backline. That's why I use GK, because it's like I definitely go for a very, very transparent, very uncolored, very flat sound. Right. Again, and that's a throwback to my Uncle Vic, because he showed me the light as far as like super high end gear. Like for me, it's like buy it once, buy it for life. Yeah. Like, I spent a shitload of money on a Walter Woods head, but other guys spend $750 on a head every 2 years and buy 3 of them. Okay, I threw down 2.5 G's, but I have one head that's last me a lifetime. Yeah. You get the single channel or the dual channel? Because it wasn't. I used the electroacoustic, so it's the dual channel. Okay. The ultra high power blue light, and I have a high power stereo. Okay. And then like GK is like the next best thing for me as far as like cleanliness of sound, flat sound. And then for the baby bass, I only use the Aguilar GS 112, which is now discontinued. Right. And the old school AG 500, also discontinued. That setup for Ampeg baby bass, there's nothing better. That's it, huh? That's for me. Yeah. There's something away. Like the Aguilar AG 500 is a very colored head. Yeah. Like I don't like playing electric through it personally. Oh, really? No. But for the baby bass, there's something about it, man. Like the roundness. It's got like kind of a low mid bump. Like it's got a very specific mid-range thing. Right. Yeah. But like conversely, like when I put the baby bass through like Walter Woods and Bergantino, I'm not feeling it. Really? No, I'm just, it's I've been using that combo for the baby bass for years, man. And same with the Bergantino, huh? Like just the Bergantino versus the Aguilar cab. You find the Aguilar cab on the baby bass has a little mojo that the Bergantino doesn't. Yeah. I mean, the Bergantino is a very pristine. Yeah. They're very clear. When I first started playing the Walter Woods and Bergantino combo, I was like, wow, this sounds like shit. And then I realized, oh no, this is just like super transparent. So all my technical fallacies are coming. I sound like shit. Yeah, now I'm exposed. Yeah. In essence, it made me a much better bass player. But yeah, I mean, like there's no the Walter Woods and Bergantino combo does not lie. It's like the microphone. The microphone does not lie, neither does that combo. Right. Yeah. So then the Ampeg B15, I have a couple of Glockenklang rigs.
Okay.
Like old school, like by old school meaning like, early 2000s, because that's considered old school now.
I know, right? That's 20 years old.
Again, that's, like kind of like, I've always been into like I said, the audiophile great stuff, Glockenklang stuff is great. And then I have in Vegas, like a 69 Blue Line SVT with the matching cap, but I haven't brought that over from Las Vegas yet.
Okay.
So, which is actually surprisingly, that's a very, 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 very good head, man. Like those old Ampeg heads, they're just built like tanks, and they sound really good. Yeah.
No, I mean that was such a formative sound. Like the old Ampeg is such a iconic tone. Like Ampeg and a P. Like boom, that's it. That's the best bass sound.
Man.
Back in the day, like that was it. You still go back to Vegas a lot to do some playing?
I do. I go back and I go back and play with the Philharmonic there.
Okay.
I used to be a member, but when I moved to San Francisco, I left the section just because I couldn't make a lot of the dates.
Yeah.
But I still go there. Every now and then there's like a show or a run out. I'll go, but I mean, that's home for me. Well, it was home, I should say. I was practically born and raised there. So, I definitely consider myself a desert rat.
Right. I mean, me too, but from Phoenix.
I cut my teeth playing on the Strip, man.
Yeah.
Vegas was a really cool town to grow up in.
What was that scene like back then? Well, let's say 20 years ago? I mean, were you working pretty regularly, like 18, 19?
Yeah. I'm talking like, growing up as a kid in the 90s, because, there was a lot of, there was a lot of work in the obviously 60s, 70s, 80s, dwindling in the 90s, the showroom bands.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of motherfuckers, man. Like, Carl Fontana lived half a mile away from my house. Carl Fontana. Yeah. Frank Rosalino, JJ Johnson lived in Vegas at one point.
Oh, wow.
Bobby Shu, Don Menza.
Yeah.
So, Vegas was cool because, they had a lot of jazz concerts, because it was, a little older crowd. So there was, there were always big band concerts and at hotels and at, and
those dudes were probably teaching at UNLV at the time.
It was cool, man. Like, cause like, my high school jazz band director and his friends, they kind of come from that old school, man. So you kind of were broken in that way. Right. Which is sad to say. I don't think, a lot of young musicians are broken in that way now. It was probably questionable, but like it made me who I am.
Yeah, I did, because you learn a different skill set by coming up that way, and it's the skill set is invaluable. Like all the things you learn in addition, it's invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, in the early 2000s to like the teen 2000s. Vegas was happening for like a lot of like Broadway shit. I left for San Francisco. There was I did like 3 or 4 Broadway shows back to back. And obviously, that was great for the reading, doubling. I hope Vegas comes back to its former glory, because it used to be a really good place for musicians to make a living. Playing music. It's
it seems like. I mean, I know from doing this and just talking to people, I haven't been to Vegas in like 15 years, but it seems like what they have now is the artist residencies, like I know Santana's there.
But it's mostly for, that's
you're thinking the working guys.
Yeah, the local guys aren't on like the
they're not on that scene at all. No.
It's guys who live here who go out there.
That's exactly why I know of it. Yeah. Right.
But I think it'll make a comeback. Cirque was a nice little thing for a lot of the local guys. Mm-hmm. Vegas is definitely a commercial town, bro. I mean, the town itself is not built or ever intended to be some kind of cultural hub.
No.
You know, although they have a banging performing arts center,
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Smith Center, which I've played in many times, consider it my home. You know, there are a lot of jazz clubs opening up in Vegas right now. You know, there's a lot of killer guys in Vegas living there right now. So I honestly think, you know, it's going to come back up. Like the Raiders house band is all local. It's a local band. Yes. Yeah. And that's the way it should be.
Dude, have you been to that stadium? I was doing a gig. I drove through Vegas last year around this time. I was playing some casino, like not in Vegas, but I had to cut through Vegas. And like that stadium was right there on the left-hand side of the freeway. Oh my man, what a presence. It's so looming. It's all black and it's just like staring at you as you drive by. It's intense.
Professional sports is the new gold mine in Vegas now, man.
Yeah.
So I have not been to the stadium. You know, it's every time I go, like, you know, the Vegas that I know and, you know, have grown up with kind of like disappears a little bit.
Right.
One more each time.
Like that picture in Back to the Future, right? Where the picture's disappearing, like you're just watching Vegas kind of slowly deteriorate.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like I said, man, musically for me, you know, it's where I cut my teeth, man.
That's great. You know, it's a great time to do it.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Abo, dude, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you, man.
All right. That was my talk with Abo Gumroyan. I really liked the part of the talk. I don't know how do you say it? You know, when we were talking about, like, I don't know if it picking your lane or staying in your lane, but like I really do think that whatever anybody ends up pursuing in their artistry and within their whatever path they choose as a musician, it's kind of always been in them. You know, like it takes a lot of effort to develop the skill set to flourish in any aspect of music, but whatever anybody really decides to do, I think that was already in them from an early point in their playing, or maybe even an early point in their life. And I kind of like that Abo and that the conversation went there. I like that the conversation went there with Abo. Check him out on Instagram. I will have a link up to his page at thebasshed.com/podcast/Abo Gumroyan. If you are enjoying the Basshed podcast, please hit subscribe wherever you are listening to it. And that's about all I got for this one, folks. That's all I got. I will catch you on the next one in a minute.